What's up, Facebook, Instagram? Wonderful to see you. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope you're each having a wonderful start to your week. This evening, we are talking about why, when, and which specific type of cardio, if any, to add during a dieting phase to help you optimize your progress and maximize fat loss and muscle maintenance during a dieting phase. So let's dive right in. And actually, nope. Backtracking already, what type of cardio do you do during your dieting phases and how frequently do you do it? Comment below, both Instagram, Facebook. I would love to know because there's so many, for lack of better words, mistakes being made when it comes to adding cardio in terms of when people are adding it, why people are adding it, which type, and how much. And ultimately, this can be one of the major reasons people cannot finish their diet and inevitably gain all that weight they lost right back in a flash. So let me know below which type of cardio do you do and why do you do it in the section below. So with that said, it's important to understand the role of cardio during a diet. And before I go into that, we need to clarify what adding cardio means. I'm not referring to the cardio at the tail end of your Metcon or CrossFit workout, and I'm not talking about any specific endurance training you do as a part of your usual training. I'm talking about literally adding a complete and separate additional workout session that consists of cardio. This is not part of your regular 5 to 6 workouts per week. Now, the biggest reason that you may choose to add cardio during your dieting phase is because it is another tool to help create and sustain a calorie deficit. And remember, cardio with the dog, what a great option. Now remember, in order to drive weight loss, you must be taking in fewer calories than you're burning. Well, during a diet, there comes a certain point where reducing food even further may become counterproductive at that time. And the reason being, it increases hunger and craving so much or reduces an energy so much that you actually get off track from your diet or off plan, which sends you a few steps backwards. And obviously, that's not sustainable and nor is it ideal to help you accomplish your goals. However, rather than actually cutting more food and taking away more carbohydrates, another tool or approach you can consider is adding more cardio in to help create a calorie deficit to continue driving weight loss. So that is the big reason as to why you might add cardio. And early on in a dieting phase, I do not like to have my clients, those I work with, start with any high amount of cardio. Outside of maybe 1 to 2 light sessions a week for active recovery or cardiovascular health or to prevent them from going crazy, I don't like to have any additional cardio. And that's because I anticipate in most instances I'm going to have to add cardio in some way, shape, or form later on into the diet to further drive weight loss. So by starting with a low baseline, I ensure a couple things. Number one, I ensure that the cardio we do add, they respond well to it. There's an additional 300 to 600 calorie deficit being created sometime during the week and they respond well. And number two, by starting with a very low baseline of cardio and then increasing to 1, 2, maybe even 3 sessions per week, it's still sustainable. And we can gradually and simply revert backwards when we're finished dieting. Now, if you were to start with a baseline of 3 to 4 sessions per week, well, that's your norm. That's what your body's accustomed to. So in order to recreate a calorie deficit, we're going to have to add even more sessions to your week. Now, we're talking about 5, 6, maybe even 7 sessions per week or 2 to 3 very long sessions. Not sustainable, not ideal for muscle maintenance. So that's why I like to make sure when I'm working with someone, I'm about to transition them to a dieting phase, their additional cardio is, very low. Again, outside of basic active recovery or cardiovascular training for cardiovascular health, there's not much to it. We want to keep that baseline level low so we have room to increase as necessary and can consciously account for keeping sustainability at the forefront of our minds as we move throughout the dieting phase. Now, so let's say it's finally time where, hunger is pretty frequent, cravings are frequent, and food's fairly low. Well, now we might consider introducing cardio, and we have to make a decision. Which type of cardio are we going to add? And we have 3 specific options. We have HIIT cardio or high intensity interval training. We have MIS cardio or moderate intensity steady state cardio. or LISS, low intensity steady state cardio. And the decision here starts with one important consideration before moving on to other factors. Which type are you most likely to do? That is what is most important, because if I recommend you do HIIT cardio and you absolutely freaking hate it and you don't do it, well, it defeats the purpose, because now you're not creating that extra calorie deficit and you're not using it as a tool to help you reach your goals. Conversely, if the thought of doing 30 minutes of steady state cardio drives you freaking nuts and you'd rather knock it out with 10 intervals and a 15 to 18 minute workout, well, again, you're not as likely to do it, therefore you're not going to see the results. So first and foremost, make sure you choose a form of cardio that you enjoy. With that said, now we need to assess your schedule. How much additional time in your week do you actually have to account for this additional cardio? Do you have 2 30-minute sessions a week available? Or maybe do you only have an extra 10 or 20 minutes because you're so busy with extracurriculars, picking up the kids, dropping off the kids, and working 2 jobs and or going to school? You need to assess how much time you actually have, because that's going to dictate which type of cardio you're actually going to be able to get in. So for example, if you're one who is already very tight on time to hit your lifting sessions for the week, well, you may be better off with high intensity interval training, because you're going to get the same caloric burn or roughly the same caloric burn during your session, probably slightly less, but an elevated rate of calorie expenditure during the next 24 hours. But your cardio session is going to be squeezed into a tighter window. We're going to have succinct training and rest periods so that you get your intervals in a very timely manner. And for most people, this means 10 to 15 minutes. And for some, I like to add another 5 to 8 minutes post-lifting so they can get out of the gym in a hurry and get on their way. However, if you do have plenty of time or you have multiple rest days built into your weekly training schedule, well, now you actually have more time to accommodate longer cardio sessions, somewhere in the 20 to 30 minute range, and on the rarest occasion, maybe up to 45 or 50 minutes, depending on your goals and where you're at. So personal preference and schedule are going to dictate your cardio choice immensely. Please keep that in mind. With that said, let's break down some pros, cons, and explanations of the 3 types of cardio I just mentioned, which again, high intensity interval training, moderate intensity steady state training, and low intensity steady state training. So high intensity interval training is, well, just that. You are going all out, 110% effort, no 75% BS. You're literally giving your all for 10 to 15 seconds. I'm going to be candid. You can't do high-intensity interval training for 30-second intervals. There's no way you're sustaining 110% intensity for 30 seconds. So keep your intervals short, 10 to 15 seconds, and all-out intensity, followed by a 60 to 90 second period of very low intensity. I mean, honestly, you're just trying to stay moving, whether that's pedaling on a bike or pushing yourself with the elliptical, or maybe light, slow jumping jacks if you're doing battle ropes for your intervals. So with that said, the benefits are multiple here. We've got, a reduced exercise time. So again, if you're a busy woman, a busy man, you can get it in to adapt to your busy schedule. You are going to raise the number of calories you burn in the next 24 to 48 hours. And this is related to a phenomenon known as an elevated exercise post-exercise oxygen consumption, which basically means you are consuming more oxygen in the hours up to a day or more following your workout. And in order to handle that, your body elevates the number of calories it burns. So although your session is shorter and you may not be expending as many calories in that short session versus a 30-minute steady state session, your total caloric burn in the next 24 to 48 hours is actually higher. Bam. That's a great win there, because you're exercising for less time and burning more calories. Additionally, this high-intensity interval training is more advantageous for muscle mass, and even, depending on the choice of exercise, may mimic some of your lifting movements. So, for example, bends at the knee and the hip creases during assault training on the stationary bike, doing your intervals there, is closely related to some of your movements for the squat and deadlift. Whereas, the jog outside at a very slow pace has absolutely no carryover to your squat or deadlift. So little nuances there have a positive impact on your lifting as well as your physique and the number of calories you burn per day. Some drawbacks from high intensity interval training. It can be rough. It can be absolutely rough. And if you are in the midst of a high intensity training block, this high intensity interval training is not going to complement your lifting. It's actually going to impede recovery if you do not pencil it in appropriately and scale back the frequency, number of intervals, and duration of your intervals. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, with low intensity and moderate intensity steady state, these are very subjective in how you classify that. You can go into heart rate, you can go into rating of perceived effort, but here's how I differentiate them. Low intensity steady state, you're walking the dog. You have a light walk outside. Whereas moderate intensity steady state cardio, you're challenging yourself. You've broken a good sweat. You're pushing yourself, but it's at a pace you can sustain for 20 to 30 minutes. You're not failing after 3 minutes or fewer minutes than that. It's something you can sustain, but it is a challenge. And if you're doing these multiple times during your dieting phase, you should be challenging yourself so that you're accomplishing more distance or more calories burned in a set amount of time. That way you're continuing to improve upon the base you established from the beginning. And what I like about this is it's not nearly as taxing on your body. You're able to recover very quickly. It gets blood flow out and delivery of oxygen and other nutrients throughout your body, which may help with the recovery processes. The only drawback is if you do it for too long, upwards of 30 minutes or more, it may start to have a negative impact on muscle maintenance if you're in the midst of a dieting phase. And as we already alluded to, it can be costly in terms of time. If you don't have much time, well, you're going to struggle to fit in 2 to 3 20 to 30 minute workout, moderate or low intensity steady state sessions during the week. So to recap, multiple pros and cons for each type of cardio. High intensity interval training, fast, better for muscle maintenance, increases the number of calories you burn in a shorter amount of time than the next 24 to 48 hours, but very taxing, may impede recovery. Moderate and low intensity steady state cardio takes a lot more of your time, but it's easier on the recovery system. It's not as taxing, and it actually may help enhance your recovery from your lifting during the week. Whew, and that was a lot of information. So, hit pause after this, rewatch it, digest it. The only other item I want to follow up on is choosing the right type of cardio for you is going to come down. Is really just related to the fact, let me backtrack. There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong type of cardio. Your friends might have benefit doing HIIT. You may prefer to do low or moderate intensity steady state cardio. At the end of the day, it comes back to what's sustainable and the fact that regardless of what you choose, the purpose of that cardio is to actually continue creating or recreating a calorie deficit to further drive weight loss. But keeping some of this knowledge in mind, keeping the pros and cons that I just listed at the forefront of your decision is going to help you choose a route that is optimal for sustainability, recovery, and ultimately your progress. You do need to keep that in mind. Oh, and now I did finally come back to my train of thought. What I wanted to discuss was when to time your cardio sessions in relation to your lifting. Number one, at all costs, if your schedule allows, try to do your cardio on a completely different day. That way, there's no interference effect per se on the cellular level related to muscular adaptations to resistance training versus adaptations related to cardiovascular or aerobic training. Those can interfere with one another, so if you do your lifting and your cardio too close together, there can be what's called an interference effect and a negative impact on muscle growth, repair, and maintenance. No bueno, not what you're looking for. However, I know this situation will present itself where you have to do your lifting and your cardio on the same day. And when that's the case, I recommend an absolute minimum of 4 to 6 hours between each session, preferably trying to get your lifting in first. That way you're fresh and can devote 110% of your energy to your lifting. Now, again, sometimes your schedule is not going to allow that. So if you feel the need to combine your lifting and your cardio, I have 2 recommendations for you. Number one, if you're doing high intensity interval training, keep it short, 3 to 6 intervals, pencil it in post-workout. That way it's almost as if it's a continuation to your lifting workout due to the high intensity nature. Or number 2, if you're doing some form of low to moderate intensity steady state cardio, split your session in half, do, an additional 10 minutes pre-lift and an additional 10 minutes post-lift. But do not have that post-lift cardio be much longer, because then we're going to start running into some of those negative effects I just mentioned in terms of muscle maintenance and recovery. Questions, comments, please, I'd love to help you out here. I'd love to know what you're currently doing for your cardio and how we can make a slight change or 3, to help you maximize muscle maintenance, and finally help you sustainably achieve your weight loss and your physique goals. Tomorrow night, Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we're diving into a discussion about fruit, the tasty strawberries, and the impact fruit may have on fat loss. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you tomorrow night. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday evening.